Hi, I'm Zach. In this video, I'm going to be starting a book where I'm keeping account of my joy on a daily basis from morning, noon, and nighttime. And I'm doing this because it will help me attain more joy. As I keep account and through the weeks, months, and years, I can see more clearly, audit myself, and see how much joy I'm getting on a daily basis and how much progress I've made. And then I can celebrate this, but also it'll give me clarity and more alertness on creating joy. So things like this, I would say it's important to acknowledge there's not one answer to anything. This isn't going to just automatically give me more joy in life. It's a whole bunch of things. Just like a seed, if the atmosphere is conducive, there's soil, water, sunlight, then it can begin to grow more. And so if I continue to do the other things and side of my life that I've been doing that keep my atmosphere conducive on the outside of me, but also the inside, then joy will just naturally happen. And also, just as maybe more important, if I keep not doing the things that make the atmosphere not ideal and bring in toxic chemicals and just certain things into the atmosphere, such as eating a bunch of processed foods most of the time, and smoking and drinking and putting toxins in this body, and just acting compulsively in general, not consciously, allowing my mind to just constantly run and spiral all over the place without asserting some type of, not necessarily control, but taking a hold of it to the best of my ability. And so this is one thing that I haven't done, that I'm experimenting with now in my life. And I must say, I've done this a little bit inside of my head, inside of my brain hole. I have thought, not really pinpointed or in any organized way, for the past couple weeks, like, oh, how much joy did I feel today? How much better do I feel from today compared to yesterday? And what happened that made me feel less joy? What can I do about it? And so gradually, as I've given up substances and I've put my energy and time towards things to better understand my mind and body, but to give myself space away from it, so these thoughts don't consume me, and so the pain of withdrawals doesn't consume me either. Simply just having space and not identifying with anything in my mind or my body as myself has helped me feel much more joy, and many other pleasant feelings too, and other things that go along with life, which are beyond joy or more intense than joy. But this video is about joy, so we're going to be talking about that. And now I'm going to write in this book my first account for joy in the morning today, April 24th, 2024. So this book has some ripped out pages because I've had this book for a year or two, and I've I haven't decided what to use this book specifically for yet. And a couple times, I can't remember what I wrote. It was probably a to-do list or song lyrics or journaling or something. But I ripped it out because I felt it just wasn't good enough or for whatever reason. But now, I feel very strongly and committed to this idea of this being the book of joy. Accounting, keeping account of my joy, and then auditing it so I can pay myself tax at the end of the year with joy tax. How much joy did you not give me? What? Anyway, here we go. Okay, so I'm rating my joy on a scale from 1 to 10, morning, noon, and evening. And I already kind of messed it up because I was going to put 3 for each one. So like morning, the first one would be whenever I first wake up. The second one is like mid-morning. The third one is the end of the morning. But now reflecting, I don't necessarily have to have this much detail. It could just be one number for morning, noon, and evening. I don't have to be so much in my head about it. But I wrote down 5.7. 5 being just normal, not really joyful, but anything less than 5 is, there's some anxiety. There's some, or anxiety is, or unpleasant feelings are a majority on the inside. At 5, it's about baseline. I'm moderately joyful. I'm not necessarily joyful, but I'm here, alive. And then any moment, if something good happens, or just in general, as I breathe in, I feel a little bit of joy, a little bit of pleasantness. So I wrote down 5.7 because this morning I felt a little bit more than average amount of joy. So 5 is like just average joy. It's just a decently good day so far. But I'm still saying around 5.7 because there's still a baseline. There's still something on the inside, some like knot, some emotion that even, you see, as I do meditation or yoga, or I sit here and I consciously embrace life and just focus on the breath, that knot seems to loosen up, and then it's not a knot, and then I don't feel the tension. And I've come a long way getting to this point, because about a month ago, whenever I was smoking and just eating unconsciously and just not really putting this much alertness and effort into making myself a more joyful, compassionate human being, my baseline was probably a 2 or a 3. So I was not really feeling joy ever. Like, well, I mean, it would jump from a 2 to a 5, and then sometimes a 7. And now this is my average. And in the morning, there were moments where I felt like a 7, like after meditating, after doing yoga. I had some high moments where I felt blissful and I felt joy, and I laughed and giggled at being alive. And you know, I woke up this morning in a decently good mood. I woke up and there wasn't a smile on my face immediately, but after a moment or two, I reminded myself to put myself in that state of mind, to breathe in and think about life and this moment in a certain way to where I would have great grace and gratefulness for it. And so this is the average of the morning so far. It's the beginning of the morning, so I probably should have waited a little bit to write down this average, but I'll write the rest of the morning and noon together as an average. I don't have to be a fanatic and I'll like beat myself up over messing up my first account of keeping joy and take joy away from myself because I'm not keeping account of my joy right. And so this is the average of the morning so far. It's 5.7, and it's starting to feel more like a 6 now. I'm starting to feel like doing this and just keeping account is liberating myself from certain thought processes and certain things, and so it's allowing me to just cultivate more joy within myself. And like I was saying, there's still some like baseline anxiety or some thoughts and emotions that I'm still identifying with, but acknowledging this is helping me not identify with them and allowing these things to and myself to dissolve. And so we'll see where I'm at noontime, because I know if something happens today that stresses me out, that I allow to stress me out, and once I go to work, there will be energies. I will be faced with some things that have triggered me in the past. But it's an opportunity for me to heal and not be triggered by them today. So we'll see. Hopefully it goes from a 5 to a 7. Might jump up to a 10. Just naturally. Not because anything happened. Not because I received something. Or because of the transactional give or take inside of our minds. Because everybody is nice to me at work, and someone gives me a $500 tip because they win $10,000 on the lottery. That, of course, I'm still in a state of mind where that will bring me joy, but eventually that joy will disappear. It's not long-lasting joy. It's not true, authentic joy. The joy that I'm keeping account of and keeping track of is a pure joy for life, just joy for being here, for being alive, beyond any transaction, beyond anything physical or materialistic, beyond my mind and body, which are both still in the physical world. It's just joy for being here, this joy that naturally comes whenever my mind and body don't get in the way, whenever I don't let them get in the way of my joy because of my thought process. Because the mind is the only reason why I'm not at a 10 right now. How about you, Winnie? Are you joyful? Let's put you down in here too. Where are you at? A 10? I think you're at a 10. Because you're a dog. Don't ruin the audio quality in this video by sniffing the phone. So, now I shall see y'all around lunchtime before I go to work. And then I'll see you again around nighttime. Right before I go to bed or right after I get off work. And I'll talk about where I'm at and how much joy I got, and we'll write it down in this book. Alright, See you later. Hello, here I am, around noon, and I wrote 6.7 because my joy went up about 1 point, I'd say. It's now definitely above average, and actually a little bit further than it's usually been whenever I go above average, because I put in extra time and energy today towards just being outside and doing certain things that helped increase my mood and my awareness and helped me just let go of, not really let go, but stop creating all these thoughts inside of my head and holding on to things intellectually and logically. And I just started experiencing life, breathing and walking around, and I did a little bit more meditation and yoga, so I felt the benefits of that. And yeah, just that also allowed me to let go of thoughts that I was holding on to that were keeping that anxiety and those knots inside of my stomach and heart. And I also worked on some music, although the song I worked on, it's not really one of my favorite songs, and one that, like, each song is different as far as the sound that it creates and how some songs even make me feel uncomfortable and some songs make me feel a little bit more freer and looser, and especially if I don't know the song that well. And so this was a newer song, and so I kept messing up and things like that. But being uncomfortable and feeling pain and being in uncomfortable situations or getting outside your comfort zone or messing up and having to do the same thing over and over again does not have to dictate how much joy I have, which is another reason why I feel a little bit more joyful right now, is because I'm liberated from that, because I experienced something that, in the past I might have expected to take away my joy. But going through that experience and just being willing to experience it and go through it is very liberating. It's something else that has dissolved away. So, and another thing is work. So I have to get ready for work now. I have to leave in like an hour and a half. And that's another thing that in the past I've expected it to take away my joy, it's caused me anxiety. But every single day I'm transforming my mind, my state of mind, and the way I feel about it and think about it as an opportunity. And I'm going headfirst into it with pure determination and devotion towards growing as a human being. And so I must be honest and say that there's still some anxiety and certain feelings that I feel inside of myself. Some about having to go to work, but some just in general from thoughts that I'm making up inside my head hole, my brain. But today I feel a little bit more joyful, and I've dissolved many of those things away. The thoughts, the suffering that I've created inside of my head about going to work, about the human being I am today and where I'm at, knowing that the thoughts about it inside my head is not actually what the truth really is. And so far this has been very beneficial, and it has kept me accountable to seeing how joyful I am. And just doing that has made me dissolve the things that are keeping me from having a general foundation of joy that naturally comes whenever you don't mess up your mind and body, and whenever you're not thinking all these thoughts and you're not consuming things that diminish the state that your body's in, just compulsively consuming things in a hopes that it will give you joy, and then expecting it to give you joy, but it doesn't. And so one thing that I did do that diminished the amount of joy that I'm feeling now is I overate a little bit. I'm still intermediate fasting, so I'm having giant meals twice a day. And after quitting nicotine and weed and caffeine, it's been about a month now, that is a compulsive habit that can arise within me at times. And today I overate a little bit. I ate a lot. Not as bad as other days. Not like my stomach didn't really hurt a whole bunch, but it was full. It was more full than it needed to be, which meant that my energy was a little bit lower, which also made it possible for my brain to come up with thoughts where I'm a little bit hard on myself. Like, oh, why did you do that? Oh, you shouldn't have done that. You know, all these thoughts that come up and start to pull me in and away from the experience of life and pulls me in my head. And so that is another reason why I'm only at a 6.7 out of 10 right now. But I'm getting better. I'm growing, cultivating the joy even more, or just cultivating myself as a human being, and then the joy naturally grows from that. So I'll see y'all after work now. We'll see what happens. But I'm going head first for whatever happens. I'm ready for whatever happens. Hi, here I am at the end of the night, and I wrote down a 7.0. Now, throughout the day and night, I was definitely at about a 5.5, maybe worse, like 5.4, but not too bad. Because overall, every single time I was triggered, I was able to use that energy and turn it into joy. And not in a toxic positivity way where I'm not facing how I actually feel, but by realizing that any time I got trapped in those feelings, it was through a thought process that's not actually based in reality. And it doesn't really matter as far as if I thought about how I'm mortal and any moment I could die. Tomorrow I could be dead. And then I thought about how zoomed out I'm very tiny compared to the entire existence. The whole universe doesn't revolve around me. And there's other ways and techniques and thought processes I have that help me keep a compassionate state of mind. So even though there were moments of anxiety, there were also moments where I felt very joyful, and I made other people feel joyful too. And so, yeah, today was, well, I almost said better than I expected, but I wasn't expecting anything, which was another reason why it went so well, because whenever I expect things, then it gets to me whenever it doesn't go well. So those moments whenever I was triggered would have likely ruined my day if I expected for me to do well today and be joyful and not be affected by people. Now, I was affected by people, but this is more joy than I felt any other day before me, or before this year. Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm like 99% sure that, especially a month ago, whenever I was smoking and eating on the processed foods, and before I was putting this much attention and effort into transforming myself, And so it was definitely a success. Woo! But now I shall go to bed and continue to use this book until it's filled up. And I imagine, I imagine I will possibly get to a point where I no longer keep account of my joy, because I just have so much joy, and there's no reason to keep account of it if I feel joyful and compassionate more than, just in general. If I just overflowing with joy and compassion, then there's no reason to put energy towards keeping account of it, unless I enjoy doing it beyond just keeping account of how joyful I am day to day and what kept me from being joyful. But I imagine I will get to a point where I will no longer be keeping account of my joy. For now, it's a good thing to do. It's a good technique. And the fact that I did this, it also helped me stay conscious throughout the day. And I was already doing that the past week and staying conscious and doing other things, like the things I talked about, thinking about zooming out and thinking about how, like, whenever something triggers me, thinking about how whatever I'm thinking about now really means nothing compared to the entire existence. And is it really worth it to dread on this whenever I'm mortal? Any moment I could die. Or not even thinking about it like that, but just taking space away from whatever triggers me and just imagining death. Imagining, like, if I died in this moment. It's, in a way, it's liberating. It helps just transform my mind. And then there's other things that I think about, and it helps me be compassionate. So leave a comment down below. Have you ever kept account of your joy? Or maybe you're thinking about doing this too. It helps me. It helps me stay conscious of it throughout the day. I was thinking of this book throughout the day, and it also keeps me accountable. I'm thinking, well, I better choose joy and compassion because I'm making a video out of it, and I'm gonna have to write it down in this book. And so, beyond making this video, in the future it will help keep me accountable, because I know that I'm gonna be keeping account of my joy, and I desire to have more joy every single day, and that's something that I know I can do. I've done it before this book, and now keeping account of it, I've done it with the book. And I want to be honest with myself too. If I have a bad day, I'm going to write it down. If it's a 2 all day, or a 1 or a 0, hopefully not. That's like really, really bad. No joy. Or -1 is like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that in this video. But it's important to be honest, so I can actually work on myself and grow and see what is keeping me from getting joy, or from being a joyful, compassionate human being. But it's also important to acknowledge that it's a choice, and that I can make that choice and grow and be more joyful. So, thanks for watching. For the animals, woo!